Commission Christian Radio presents I, Caiaphas, written for radio in 8 episodes by Colm Flanagan. Episode 4, A Different Preacher.
I wondered what would happen next after the affair of Pilate and the Roman soldiers' standards. I hadn't carried out my threat to contact the legate in Syria, and I hoped that a period of relative peace might allow things to settle down. But that turned out to be a vain hope, though it wasn't from Pilate that the next crisis arose. And it hardly seemed to be much to worry about at first. One day, Malachi was giving his usual report of what he'd picked up by keeping his ears and eyes open.
So, sir, the city seems calm enough these days, nothing more than the usual grumbling about taxes and such like.
Yes, of course there'll always be some corruption there. Greed is a great incentive. But he'd be a tax gatherer. They need to watch themselves. If they take too much, they'll get no thanks from the Romans. And of course they run the chance of disappearing down a back alley after dark. Not everyone believes in our faith's carefully graded punishments, an eye for an eye and so on. Some folk think a dagger in the back is a suitable repayment for loss of money.
Indeed, sir. Funny you should say that, sir.
Oh?
Well, I did hear someone talking about a rabbi from Galilee who's been saying some quite remarkable things about tax collectors.
Such as?
Apparently he's been upsetting quite a few of the local Pharisees.
Well, that's not hard. Some of them can be rather, shall we say, prickly when it comes to anyone disputing with them, especially some of those provincial hardliners.
Indeed, sir. But then there are stories of miracles, children being raised from the dead, that kind of thing.
Another prophet aiming to be a messiah, then. We've had our fair share of them.
I heard a rumour, mind you, it's only that Nicodemus has been to see him.
Nicodemus? But he's one of the council. Why should he seek out a Galilean preacher?
My informant tells me he called on him in the middle of the night.
Now that is a little worrying. Why the secrecy? You know, Malachi, maybe we should look into this fellow. Did you find out his name?
He's just known as Jesus of Nazareth. His father was a technon, a carpenter, village middle class. You may remember, he's the cousin of John the Baptist.
Ah, yes. Still, he's hardly a prophet if he's from Nazareth. You know what they say about them. Still, it'd do no harm for you to make the trip north, Malachi. Find out what's really going on. Eat some more fish. They say it's good for the brain.
Yes, sir. I'll hand over to my deputy and set off tomorrow.
So Malachi set off on his mission. At this stage, I didn't think it would really amount to much. How wrong I was. Then I was distracted by another, different situation.
Is that you, love? We're over here.
Judith, I have some news from the market for you. Oh.
Good afternoon, High Priest. I invited Lady Claudia here, Caiaphas. I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. I hope you're being entertained well, my lady.
Oh, very well, thank you.
And Pilate, is he well?
Oh, Caiaphas, may I call you that? I know that you and my husband don't hit it off. I also know perfectly well that he can be a bore and self-opinionated. Though please don't tell him I said that.
Of course not, Lady Claudia. But I am a little surprised to find you here.
We have been discussing religious matters, my Joseph. Claudia has been asking me about our beliefs.
I see. I thought the Romans had their own gods.
We have. But I am interested in your Jewish beliefs in one true God. I understand that the Greeks have a God they call the Unknown One. Do you think there may be any connection, Caiaphas?
Well, I confess I'm not an expert in Greek thinking. And to be honest, they are a people who will cover their bets always, so to speak. I think they have a desire to be seen to be the ones with all the answers to any philosophical question. We Jews base our faith on a much more down-to-earth approach.
Yes, I am beginning to understand that. You even have people who aren't well born, who can interpret what your God says. Am I correct?
Why, yes. We call them prophets. They have a mission to remind us of the core beliefs of our faith.
But they quite often clash with the priests.
Well, yes. That's because sometimes they aren't really in touch with the real world.
The political world?
Yes, if you like. The world that you and I live in, Lady Claudia, where everything needs to be carefully thought through, or there may be unexpected and unpleasant consequences.
Message received and understood, Caiaphas.
Now, that's enough of politics and religion for now, you two. I have prepared something for us to eat. Shall we go inside and take it?
Oh, that would be lovely, Judith.
Forgive me, Lady Claudia. I didn't mean to lecture you. But you do seem to have a genuine interest in our life here. Quite frankly, most Romans don't.
I know, Caiaphas.
I'm Joseph to my friends.
And I am simply Claudia to mine, Joseph.
Good. I am glad you're both going to be friends. I hope we'll see more of each other. Now, let's go inside.
It was true. Claudia was all that her husband was not. Witty, intelligent, and thoughtful. I was pleased that Judith and she were friends, and to be honest, hopeful that this friendship might help smooth the political waters. I knew that Roman husbands often listened to their wives, especially if the wife was from an aristocratic family, as Claudia was. But this went from my mind when Malachi returned from his trip to Galilee, following the preacher Jesus of Nazareth.
I've heard plenty of religious people speak. I've heard some who were supposedly religious, but this one, he is different. He speaks with authority, like you, sir, and he is genuinely caring. I mean, one day...
Go on. You sound impressed. But remember what I told you.
Well, one day a Roman approached him.
Well, that is unusual.
Yes, well, you'd expect any of our people's prophets to send a Roman away with a flea in his ear.
But this Jesus didn't do that.
No, sir. This man had a request. He asked Jesus to heal a servant of his who was ill.
And?
Jesus asked him why he was asking him. And the Roman said, "Just give the order and my servant will get well. I have officers who give orders to me, and I have soldiers who take orders from me. I can say to any one of them, 'Go,' and he goes. I can say to another one, 'Come,' and he comes. I can say to my servant, 'Do this,' and he does it."
How like a Roman. Don't they just love their positions of authority?
Yes, sir, but with respect, sir, Jesus took a different line.
What do you mean?
Jesus looked at everyone who'd gathered round. Then he said, "Do you all hear that? I tell you that in all Israel I've never found anyone with the kind of faith this Roman has." Then he said to the Roman, "You may go home now. Your faith has made the healing you are looking for happen. Your servant will be well." The man thanked him and left.
What happened to the servant?
I heard he got well. But why would a prophet say that to a foreigner, a Roman, and help him?
Well, we are sworn to protect our temple and our people. Yet God has sometimes dealt with outsiders. Look at Elisha with Naaman the Syrian, or Boaz with Ruth, the Moabitess who became David's ancestor.
There's more, sir, if you wish to hear.
Carry on. I want as much as you can remember, Malachi. I must think about all this. And think I did. What was I to make of this man? I returned home and on arrival found Judith and Claudia there. Claudia had become quite a regular visitor at our home. I think she enjoyed the opportunity to get away from the atmosphere in Pilate's quarters. Seeing her made me think of the story Malachi had just told me, about Jesus of Nazareth and the Roman. So Judith's first words rather startled me.
Joseph, have you ever heard of a teacher from Galilee? A man called Jesus?
Actually, Judith, yes, I have. Just recently.
What have you heard?
Well, he's beginning to make a name for himself. He's apparently much less anti-Roman than many of his type.
Surely that's unusual.
Indeed it is, Claudia. In fact, I heard a story about taxes which may amuse you.
Go on.
Well, it seems that some of the local leaders were trying to trip him up, get him to criticize the government or us. So they asked him if we should pay taxes to Caesar.
I see. If he said yes, He'd be a collaborator, like the tax gatherers.
And if he said no, then he'd be a rebel. So what did he do?
He asked for a coin. When he got it, he turned it over, slowly, so everyone could see. Then he asked them whose inscription was on the coin. Of course, the emperor. Then he said, "Give to Caesar his due, and to God his due." Very clever answer, actually. He interests me, this man.
I wonder, does he come up to Jerusalem at all?
Well, if he's any kind of Jew, he'll be here for the Passover feast. Why, Claudia, are you thinking of becoming a follower of his? I doubt if Pilate would approve.
No, I would just like to hear him speak. Like you, I find him interesting.
And so would I.
Tell you what, do that and let me know what you hear. We left it at that. But events were to overtake us all at that Passover feast. I next received a disturbing report from Malachi.
And so he came into the city. He was riding on a donkey, and the crowd were shouting out, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord."
On a donkey.
Yes, sir, that's right.
The words of the prophet Zechariah. Everyone in Jerusalem celebrate and shout, "Your king has won a victory and he is coming to you. He is humble and rides on a donkey."
Sir, does this fellow think he's the Messiah, the chosen one who will drive the Romans out?
It rather looks like it, Malachi. Of course he isn't. How could he be? He's from Nazareth. No prophet, let alone Messiah, ever came out of there. We all know that.
But will Pilate know that if he hears about this?
No, of course he won't. And he's likely to overreact at the slightest disturbance. I think we may have to intervene in this before long, Malachi. But I'm not sure what the best thing to do is. Let's just wait and see, shall we? At that time, I was unaware of some of the things that this Jesus had been doing and saying. Some of our people already felt he was a danger that needed to be stopped, permanently, if necessary. But at this time, I still felt that he was probably just a decent, slightly educated, and slightly deluded fellow. It was a rash thing to have got involved with this entry into Jerusalem stunt. He couldn't seriously believe he was the person Zechariah had foretold. But it appeared to have passed off peacefully. There had been no Romans near at hand to intervene. Then maybe there would be no problems. And, despite myself, I was becoming just a little bit interested in this man. I wondered what Judith and Claudia would make of him. He obviously wasn't anti-Roman, and that was different from most of the messiahs who had appeared and tried to take them on. But my calmness about Jesus was to be short-lived. The great confrontation, which has dominated my life ever since, was about to begin.
In episode 4 of I, Caiaphas by Colm Flanagan, Caiaphas was played by Peter Richardson and Pilate by Paul Bailey. Other parts were played by members of the Commission radio drama team. The play was produced in Belfast at Commission Studio, and episode 5 is entitled The Shadows Lengthen.